Welcome to the BriteVibe podcast. At BriteVibe, we believe everyone deserves to be happy. But in today's world, everywhere you turn, there is division and negativity. At BriteVibe, we have created a global movement to bring 8 million people together who are inspired to live bright, live bold, and share bright vibes. Alone, it can be hard to change, but together we can change the world. Welcome to the BriteVibe podcast.
Jenne Todd, welcome to the program today. Welcome to the podcast. So happy to have you on.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I've got lots of questions for you today. You have a program called the Millionaire Mindset Program, and you have a specific private group on Facebook. So if people are entrepreneurs, if small business owners, if you want to go check it out, you have lots of good stuff at Millionaire Mindset Program on Facebook. But primarily, you work as a entrepreneur, small business coach. Is that accurate?
That's right. Yep. I do high performance training and coaching for small businesses and entrepreneurs, mostly entrepreneurs, actually. And I kind of specialize in that emerging entrepreneur space. So not that I don't do, beyond that, but that kind of is like my favorite little spot to work.
And how are you defining emerging entrepreneur?
Anywhere from just kind of like having that idea, getting the ball rolling, to maybe, been in business less than a couple of years, still trying to like find their way, trying to do all the things. I like to help people kind of really get their focus and alignment with what they value and what they want. And I'd say, like I said, that's kind of my sweet spot. But I love the entrepreneurs. That's kind of been my gig for the past 10 years. And that's where I focus. Yeah.
And in today's world, I see more and more people becoming entrepreneurs almost by default. I think, as we kind of have the great resignation, and as people are, changing the way that they look at work and changing the way that they interact with work. And, a lot of us, even I now today, I'm doing a podcast from home for the first time, which is crazy. But, we are all kind of, a lot of us anyway, are shifting into these new ways of working. And it seems like even for those, I think people probably become entrepreneurs, even though they're not thinking that they're entrepreneurs to some degree in the beginning, right? It's like, I'm going to start my own gig. They may not necessarily put that together that, yeah, you're a business owner now, you're an entrepreneur now, you've stepped over into this whole new world. And so I can imagine that you help navigate that for them.
Yeah. And a lot of times it's navigating themselves. Because when when you step into entrepreneurship, you learn a lot about yourself really, really quickly. Right? You learn to navigate new spaces and like how to manage different challenges and reactions and, everything in between. So yeah. I feel like it just kind of like extends. There's no definite line where like our lives start and finish, and where our businesses, especially at the start, where they start and finish. So it's kind of that like intertwining. I think it's very common to most entrepreneurs, especially startups.
Yeah, totally. And I had a guest on not too long ago, Jane Warlow, and she talked about that if you want to have personal development, personal transformation, go start a business, right? It's like, and I think for many of us, we didn't know that when we got into business or became business owners. We didn't know that was like, I won't say the fast track. It seems like it's been a very slow process, but that was kind of the entryway into personal development, spiritual development, self-awareness, emotional intelligence, because to be proficient or good, or even I would say survive business over a period of time, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, you really, you have to grow yourself, right? We are the bottle caps, the bottleneck to our business.
That's what it's all about, growing yourself, right? I think if we focus on growing ourselves before we focus on any other aspect of our business, it just makes everything easier. It makes everything more prolific. We can go further, faster, but in a sustainable way. Like I try and keep people away from this like really fast growth where we're skipping steps, right? By not doing the work on ourselves first. But yeah, you're exactly right. That's why I focus on high performance. And so I guess I would say I focus on a lot of the soft skills, which if you ask me, those are harder. I kind of think like anyone can go out and learn how to do the things, the IT things, or the hire people to do those things for you. But working on yourself, you just have to get into the trenches with yourself, right? And so I focus on those aspects of high performance, that like the soft skills that pertain to like, how are you going to run this business? And when you start onboarding people like that work with you and for you, how are you going to lead? And how are you going to communicate and build relationships, and kind of get into all of those high performance habit type things that I think differentiate us in the marketplace. I really, really do.
Yeah. I even heard, so I was at a a small, it was called conscious capitalism. It's actually John Mackey, the founder of Whole Foods. It's his not-for-profit that really supports conscious business, conscious leadership. And at that conference, he was talking about that he noticed at Whole Foods, which became a publicly traded company and eventually sold, to Amazon, that he noticed even at a company that large with that many employees, that the company would plateau, stall out, or even reverse when he personally himself wasn't actively growing. Like he would notice that
Wow.
he would get to a point of like, why are sales stagnant? Why? And instead of looking just at the company, like, okay, I need to hire here and do this and do this, he would literally go on retreats. He would go on, meditation things. He would learn. He would realize that his company was a direct reflection of his own personal consciousness, if you want to call it that, conscious capitalism. And so he
Yeah.
would literally work on himself, and then he would see the business expand. He would see the business grow. So it's not just businesses starting out. It's up and down the spectrum, whether you have no employees and you're just starting out, or whether you have thousands of employees. Business is always going to be, it'll only expand as much as the entrepreneur can expand. How do you help people, I guess, navigate that or understand that principle?
Well, a lot of the people who start with me kind of know that's my angle.
Uh-huh.
A lot of them have a lot of fear around it though too. So I just try
Yeah.
and I kind of open things up and go, at everyone's individual pace. But I think a lot of it is experiential for people, right? So they start this business, they realize, oh my goodness, there's a lot of things I need to,
Right.
dive into, right? Not just the learning how to do Facebook. Like a lot of
Right.
people start and they're like, I'll just learn, just teach me how to do Facebook, teach me how to do Instagram, build a funnel. And I'm like, I can, but it's only going to go so far. And you're going to get to this spot where you plateau, and then you're going to have to come back around to doing the personal development, right? So
Mhm.
I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but
Yeah.
kind of just how do I get people there? I just really cultivate self-awareness. We talk about what's worked in the past, what, what they envision. So like vision's just as important to me as like, set out your goals. I think I focus a lot more on vision.
Right.
Let's look at your habits. Let's look at your day and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's good.
I've been on the busy hamster wheel, as you know, and it's just about like coming back into our own bodies, into our own selves, knowing that all the chaos is going to keep going on around us. There's not going to
Right.
be that perfect time to jump, right? So it's just about, I think, getting all that right in our heads.
Well, and I think you just said something important, paralysis by analysis. You said it's never going to be all right, right? It's never going to be, there is not that holy grail of, and I guess I'll ask you, what do you find with new entrepreneurs or even entrepreneurs that have been in a business a while when it comes to that kind of analysis, paralysis by analysis? Because it happens to all of us. I'm not pointing out there and saying those people. I'm saying it happens
Yeah.
to all of us. And so typically what's happening there? What's happening when small business owners kind of get stuck in that?
I think when we get stuck in that overthinking, it comes back to making the business about ourselves. So
Mm,
we start to equate it to worth, is this a reflection of me if it's doing really, really well, or if it's not going the way I want to? Then we get really stuck in our heads like, okay, how can I make this perfect and foolproof? And so I'm padding my, some of my insecurities, some of that kind of stuff. I think that's what happens there when we slip out of high performance and into things like perfection, right?
mm,
That
mhm.
causes analysis paralysis because I just won't take any, action if that action
Right.
is not perfect. So I think that is analysis paralysis, but I think it happens a lot of times by getting in our own way, thinking that it's all about us rather than coming from a place of real true service. Because
Mhm.
if we can get there, if we just take one step and know that we're able to make a difference, it's that momentum that starts happening that keeps us again out of paralysis, out of
Mhm.
trying to premeditate every little thing and force everything in our own time, right? We almost
Right.
start to lose trust, whatever that looks like to you, a greater force. It depends on what your spirituality situation is, but we just try and do it all in our own time. And we don't just give the process time to kind of unfold and unfold and grow with it, I think is the thing. So it's a danger zone, I think, the analysis paralysis. And like you said, like who has not been there, like in
Right.
business or not, we all find ourselves, partnering with that the odd time.
Yeah, overthinking.
Overthinking. Yeah.
And then, or overthinking and making all these plans, and then you take that very next step, right? And then none of that other stuff that you just spent days, weeks, years planning makes any sense anymore because the next step took you down a different
Yeah.
path, right? And that's why I like what you said about
Yeah,
vision, vision and habits versus having, these defined, Tuesdays this and Wednesdays this and Thursdays this, as far as I'm going to execute. I think I think you would encourage people to have a plan, but it's more important to have and hold the vision than just have the plan.
100%. I think we have to plug those things in together,
Right.
right? And always have that bigger vision, because again, that's what pulls us into that that paralysis as well. Not
Right.
having the wider lens, right? So
And
yeah, I agree.
how do you work with small business owners, or how do you get a small business owner, an entrepreneur, kind of how do you work with them on vision, I guess? What's that kind of look like? What framework, or kind of what do you walk them through so that they can, because I think no matter what level of business we're in, it seems like that's an ever expanding thing. So how do you help people, I guess, with their vision?
One of the things I do, well, to dial in vision, we need a lot of clarity, right, around
Right.
what it is that we want and what directions we want to go in and who do we want to bring alongside us and who do we want to grow into. So
Mhm.
I spent a lot of time on developing clarity. And in order to get some clarity, we need to get a lot of focus, right? And
Mhm.
so I think the biggest thing that slows us down in our businesses, our own growth, our world is distraction. So I'm very fierce about identifying what distractions are pulling you out of focus and vision and clarity in your life. So I almost like reverse engineer. It's almost like, here we are, let's back up quite a bit,
Mhm.
evaluate what's going on here, and then take the steps to remove distraction and to increase focus. And then just develop kind of like a bigger picture, a vision, and then we go. Like
Mhm.
that's kind of how I do it. It's kind of like a slingshot. We like
Mhm.
pull you back and then you kind of you go in your own direction. But yeah, a lot of it at the start is just really it's evaluation and assessment and going building the bigger vision, but from the place of like, where am I right now, and what limitations do I have in terms of even like my fears and stuff, because that's all distraction. So
Mm.
when I say distraction, it's not just I'm scrolling, or I'm binge watching TV. That is part of distraction, but also, distraction is fatigue based on what kind of stuff you are doing. It's overthinking. It's getting stuck in the wrong environments and the wrong groups of people. Like anything that's pulling you out from purpose and pulling you away from vision, I kind of identify as distraction. So we spend a lot of time on that at the start to kind of lay the foundation, and then we start to build. So that's my approach. I
Mhm.
find it works really, really well. I also find sometimes people get into the process and they don't necessarily know the process or trust the process at the start, even if I explain it well. And they're
Mhm.
like, whoa, this is kind of actually slowing me down. This isn't allowing me to get my funnel done.
Right.
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 So like that kind of stuff. And I think like if you do all this stuff, that stuff actually works and it works at
Right.
a high level. Yeah. But it's
Yeah.
getting that understanding when you're not necessarily like have a growth mindset at the start, which you don't know what you don't know. Right. Like I
Yeah.
have no idea of my blind spots and I have coaches to show me those things. So yeah, that's my approach to it.
Right. It's kind of limiting
Clarity.
distractions, clarity, and focus. Right.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, how do you coach, or how do you work with the people that you work with on kind of when you're finding the focus, clarity, you're eliminating distractions? It seems to me like I've had a super hard time until recently, and still, what's the phrase? The riches are in the niches, right? And so for me, I want to save the world. I want to go out and make everybody happy, and
Right.
reduce suffering, and we all just
Mhm.
can sit around the campfire and singing kumbaya, eating organic food, and living in a very happy place. But I
Yeah.
know that I cannot, can't speak to all 8 billion people. They're just not going to hear me. And so kind of, do you work with, I mean, as you're getting that clarity and focus, does some of that involve kind of figuring out, and I hear it all the time with small business owners, oh, I want to serve this population, when that population just is too big to even hear the message. Yeah. So kind of what's the process there through clarity and focus?
Yeah, I mean, really dialing it in is the process, right? I feel like when we get in this, when we come from this place of fear, which happens when we start, or lack, and we're like, I
Mhm.
just need anybody to
Right.
listen to my message or anyone to buy my program or my product, we quickly realize doesn't really work very well. Or you're helping a bunch of people in a small way. And so the satisfaction ends up being very low as well, right? So I do think that as we get to know ourselves better, as we get to know what we offer, what we bring to the table, the marketplace and all of that, it gets easier to do that. But man, I remember when I was in the process of really like niching down, it felt physically painful to go, are you saying I have to turn away business? Are you saying I can't speak to all the people anymore? Because like you, I just want to help all the people.
Right.
But actually I was helping them at a lesser extent compared to when I got really, really laser focused. And that took me knowing myself. And it took me, like I said, having that clarity, knowing exactly who I want to help. It's so important. And I think most entrepreneurs make the mistake of being in that great big ocean for far too long until we kind of like, narrow our vision in a good way. I think I wish for everyone we could just dive in already in that space, in that confidence that like, no, you're going to attract the right people if you're talking to that one person that you love working with, right? So that would be my wish for all the people starting a business.
And we met through doing a class that helps us get focused on that and focus on business and how do we speak to the right, we'll call it avatar for the sake of marketing. But ultimately, I think what you also, a little phrase that you just said there, word was speaking to the right person. And that's something I've really started to think about is I'm not talking to a group of people. I'm not talking to an avatar. I'm talking to Jenne Todd, and Jenne Todd has these concerns and these fears and these hopes and these dreams, right? And so I've really started to, as I've thought about the marketing in our business and marketing in general, is like literally having a person like that, an actual person, a real live person, like a real live Pinocchio, right? The real live boy that I'm thinking, what is that person's life about? Not what are the people that do that job or have that business, what are their lives about? It's like, no, seriously, how many kids do they have and what do they think about? And so lately, and I'm just curious what your take is on this, but lately I've literally just been interviewing people in the niche space I'm in and want to continue to be in. But I've just been literally calling people and talking to people and saying, hey, and having a set list of questions. And for me, it's small business owners, because I am that. And I love small business owners. I love small business. I love entrepreneurs. That's what I've done all my life. So I feel for their trials. I feel for their pain. And I also celebrate their successes, because I know how challenging those success. I know what's built underneath those successes, right? The foundation of their personal work. And so I guess, what's your thoughts around that?
What are my thoughts around that? So many thoughts.
I know. I have this way of, right, opening up a door, and you can take it wherever you'd like to go. But yes,
I love it.
Yes.
Yeah, I love it. I'm also, of the mindset of thinking about one person. And so I tend to think about, I do two things. I think about my favorite person I've ever worked with. I think about when they came in, what were their biggest trials? What did they lie awake at night worrying about? And I think it's very easy to say that a lot of entrepreneurs are lying awake at night at the very start going for two reasons. Oh, I want to do this. I want to do this. They're excited. And then they're going, what if it doesn't work? What if nobody hears me? What if I can't make a go of this? What will people think? So there's like two things we're lying awake, worrying about at night. But I think, what do they talk to their partner or their friends about? What do they fear? Like, do they fear having to return back to a job? Like, so I think about that. And sometimes I think about, and also like, how did I walk alongside them in terms of like their triumphs, their fears, their challenges? And like, what was that synergy? Like what created that between us? So I can kind of pull those together. And I also kind of think about clients I haven't had the high level of success with. I like to go both ends of the spectrum and go, what was it there? Like, what part of what I'm doing, plays a part, and what part of, the angle they were seeking out played a part in that not being as effective either. So I kind of look for both, but I definitely speak to one person as much as I can. And that's something it's taken me years to get to. Like you said, I was speaking to one demographic or one avatar for a long time, but not making it as specific. So I think that's something that just takes experience and practice and trust, right?
Yeah, and a certain amount of failure, honestly, right? Because I think
totally,
because I know that in most businesses that I've started, I did not do that, right? It was kind of like, well, I think there's a need here, and it sounds
Mhm.
like a good idea, and I know something about that, so therefore I'm going to launch this business. And I've been, knock on wood, lucky most of the time, but I've had some tremendous failures, and in those failures I can definitely look back and see that it was lack of actually just talking to the person about what they actually want, not my perceived understanding of what they wanted, right? It's kind of like saying,
Yeah.
and then, I mean, literally, I built buildings around ideas that I've had and watched them come crashing down because I just didn't think about what does the customer want and what does the customer need, right?
Yeah.
Versus I think that this is what they want, so I'm going to build something really pretty and they'll come. And a lot of people did come to that business, but not enough, right, to make it sustainable. And so I think that's so critical for especially someone starting out. To your point, they just want to get a client, they just want to get whatever, but you've really got to think about who do I want to work with, because otherwise there's nothing worse than working with somebody who you're not a good fit with and that you failed them and you feel like they've in a way failed you. And
Mhm.
it's like why would you want to do that to yourself or to them?
Yeah, for sure. And some of those are, like you said, our most powerful teachers. Like those
Right.
really tough spots, right? I've learned more in those spots. And the funny thing is, you go like, okay, I think I know exactly what people need. And then you
Right.
create the thing, and then it doesn't, it's the uptake's not there sometimes, the
Right.
interest, the excitement. And I pull back and I go, but I don't think I actually asked the person. I didn't
Right.
ask, right? You just
Right.
go, of course we know. So that's key. Just pulling back again, like getting a good viewpoint,
Mhm.
asking a lot of questions in a lot of different ways. This is actually where I do love the use of social media to
Uh-huh.
kind of like, people will tell you what they need if you
Right.
listen. I never reinvent the wheel. I
Right.
just listen. I ask a lot of questions and I listen, but yes. A lot of failures. We have to get good and comfortable with failure and kind of like pull the little golden nuggets out of failure, I think. But no one wants to fail. It's
No.
hard, right? When you're
You're
in
right.
that. But I think
Yep.
perspective, going in, coming
Yeah.
out.
And I
It's
agree.
huge.
I think it's never been easier to engage people in that. I've even studied a little bit of the lean startup platform or concept, where you really look at, I mean, one of the last businesses that we haven't launched yet, we're going to launch this in April. We literally said, we are not, we have to retrofit an existing building. And we were like, we're not doing any work on it. We're not changing anything in that building. We're just going to leave that part of the building. It's actually the reversal of dementia inpatient for seniors.
Oh,
And
wow.
something we're working actually with a lady I met through the podcast, Dr. Heather Sandison and Dr. Bredesen out of UCLA. It's a really cool project to be able to actually reverse all Alzheimer's and dementia. But we said, we're not changing we already had a building, but it's setting, part of it's available right now. He said, but we're not doing anything until we actually go out and get deposits. Like we're going to physically, literally, we're going to advertise, we're going to market. And when we get to 6 deposits, then we're actually going to go retrofit, change,
So
make
good.
it. And before I would have been like, okay, let's get the building, let's get the, the beds in there. I would have been so focused on the physical plant and yeah, this is something needed. And it was like, this time it was like, I just failed enough, right? That we were
Yeah.
like, okay, even though we know it works other places, is it going to work in our market? Is it going to work with our demographic? Is it going to work with our people? And so literally, yeah, we waited until we had 6 deposits, and then we went, okay, now we know now we know we have somebody's already said, yes, I'll buy that. Right. So
Awesome.
now we're going to move forward. And I think, the only reason I'm bringing that up, I guess, is just I'm hoping people listening can learn through my, financial mistakes and just the emotional time you have tied up in stuff. It's like, no, until the customer says I'm really ready to buy. Heck, I've even, as we get into this internet space in this world of coaching and online programs, it's like they say, don't even develop the whole course, right? Have an outline and then go out and see if anybody wants that course. I'm just like, for me, it's a little terrifying. It's kind of like, okay, I'm going to jump out of the plane and then I'm going to see if somebody will come along with a parachute. But it makes more sense. Why would you waste all the time and money and effort if nobody wants the thing in the form that you're presenting it, I guess. What
Exactly. I think it's important to
right,
work alongside people, build alongside people. And it is unnerving to
right,
go, here's my concept. Let's get people in the door, right?
right,
Based on the idea, and then build alongside. So yeah, I know what you're saying. The tricky thing about entrepreneurs, not tricky. It's like a blessing and a curse sometimes. We are action takers, right? We are like, let's go. And then it's hard to like pull that back sometimes, like you said, with your new business.
Yeah.
But that's how the, fireworks start happening. We take action. Not always. We get stuck in analysis paralysis too. And so when you have to actually like pull it back and not take immediate action, it's almost like we're just like uncomfortable in our own skin. Right. Like I think for a lot of us, we get pumped. So
well, we love ideas.
I love that part of entrepreneurs. Yeah, no, I love it. Yeah.
And that's why I love entrepreneurs as well, because they're super creative and they have high energy.
Sure.
And it's, it's fire first and aim second. And so we're trying to go out and guide where we shot, kind of make sure people are out of the way. But yeah, I do agree that that's really what changes the world, right? That's why I love entrepreneurs. That's why I want to support entrepreneurs. That's why I want to support, just like you do, small business owners, because that's how the world, as I've talked to other entrepreneurs and coaches on our show, it's like, that's where the real change in the world can happen. That's maybe one of the biggest catalysts for change is small business entrepreneurs, because they have the most creative ways of thinking about new concepts. And I think, as we look at technology and some of the other stuff happening in the world right now, it all comes from startups, right? It all comes from entrepreneurs. That's what, even if you look at the financial markets and all crypto, whether you're in that boom, bust, whatever, that's all created by people just sitting around thinking about, how can we do this better? How can we do this different? And then having courage, right, to step into that place of the unknown, much like if you're an astronaut or you would have been an explorer, looking for the new world. A lot of times it feels, I think, unnerving, I think is the word you use, but it feels very unnerving and scary. But that's what we have to, if that's what you're called to do, that's what you're called to do. So you have to figure it out.
Yeah. I think we have to have a little bit of like, entrepreneurs are a special breed, kind of like you said, like we have to be a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
To go right. To shoot that arrow and hope everyone gets out of the way. Yeah. But that's where that creativity comes from, and ingenuity and all the, I love entrepreneurs too, obviously. Like this is my day in, day out, because I can't help myself.
Right. And why is that? Why do you, I know my own background, but why do you want to be in this space? Why do you want to help entrepreneurs?
That's a great question too. I think it comes from right out of university. I had a corporate role. I really did enjoy it, but I felt very limited. I felt like I couldn't use my creativity the same way. Right. So, I think I was 23 and I left this very secure job with my parents going, "What are you thinking?" And like, just knowing I had to do something different where I could make, greater impact. I felt like I could make greater impact. And the lines started to blur between, my life and personal growth and stuff and my business. And that's just where like it got messy in the best way. But I don't know that I could have entered that same space being in a corporate role. So I think that's what led me into that space. And I sometimes now I'm like, I just don't know how I would stay in the lines. Like nobody would want to hire me.
Yes, I've told my wife that as well. We talked about, it's like I'm unemployable, right?
I'm unemployable.
I have tons of skill sets and tons of knowledge, but there's no way I could stay in somebody else's framework, right? It would just be like, I can partner with people and I can work, with others in a framework. It's just, I could not go back. I've never really had a job. I'll be honest with you. I've never really had since I was 19 or something, since I was a kid.
Yeah.
I've never, because it's like she said something about, well, I guess worst case scenario, you could get a job. And I was like, no, I really can't.
No one will hire me.
Well, they shouldn't, right? They shouldn't hire us because we won't stick around. We'll look at whatever they're doing and then we'll want to do it better. And we'll, right. We'll go off and want to redesign it, make it better. So, but again, I think that's what makes, and that's what as for as much of the chaos and stuff, I've just, you talk about distractions. I don't watch news anymore. I don't really read much news. I'm kind of out of the loop outside of kind of my bubble and what I can affect. But I even forgot where I was going with that. I'm a little brain dead today.
No, that's okay. I'm with you though. I'm out of that loop too. Like I could intentionally keep myself out of that, right? That distraction. That's where you were starting.
Yeah. And all of the stuff that could be construed as negative in the world. But I think there's also more opportunity to bring light or bring positivity into the space, utilizing commerce, utilizing business, utilizing, the gifts that we have. And so certainly for anybody listening that's not, um, doing their own thing, becoming an entrepreneur, if you have that calling, I'm not saying quit what you're doing, right? We're not saying throw away everything that you've done, or even go. I even like the thought of don't even quit your job, kind of but build something that can serve the world, test it, but you have to move with it too. Don't let your job be that safety net that you keep forever either, right? There's got to be a transition point where you're like, okay, it's time to go, right? It's time to, burn the
It's
ships.
important to bridge it.
Yeah.
But like you said, don't just do that out of the gate. The problem is that people get very scared and nervous and like, they're kind of in that flailing space when they just leave their job, and then we don't make good decisions from that space. Because it's just very like, I need. And that's when we, get out of our niche, we go wide. We'll just take on any business and the focus is gone. So, and I think a lot of people think they don't have that energy or that time to be able to do that bridging properly. So I've still got my job. I've got my dream over here. I'm going to start laying foundation. We think we don't have time. And that's where distraction comes in, because we are into so much distraction. And if you can peel back some of those layers and even just have less distraction, you're going to find that you have way more time than you're giving yourself credit for. Quite a bit. That's what I find all the time. So, and it, like I said, it's not just scrolling, although I did a calculation one time, and I'm not a math whiz, but I have a daughter who is, and she verified it for me. I think it's if you spend 1 hour per day scrolling, for a year, it works out to 9 40-hour work weeks of waste.
Wow.
That's huge.
Right.
So not weeks, but 40-hour work weeks. So if you're looking for extra holidays,
there you go.
And you have a job, there you go. But like, what could you do with that amount of time in a year or in 5 years or 10 years? Because we underestimate what we can get done in that amount of time. We think, we overestimate what we can do in a year, but when it comes to those bigger benchmarks, like 5 or 10 years, we really underestimate it. But if you were to add up all that time that you're wasting potentially somewhere, and I don't know, Matt, I would argue that people are not wasting 1 hour a day on social media or the news or whatever. They're wasting, far more than 1 hour a day.
Of course.
Right.
Yeah.
So do those calculations and check my math, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was.
and for me, as I've evolved my diet or exercise or anything in my life, it's kind of like, I always call it, leveling up or upgrading, whatever it is. So it's like, well, if you know that you can't stop scrolling and can't stop doing stuff, then start researching the things that you can do to become better at life, right? Research business, research how that's kind of what I do. Is it's like, I don't know that I'm scrolling any less. I just spend more time in positive spaces online, right? Whether it's, podcasts or watching videos or, or just having positive feeds in my Facebook thing, right? I got, I go through and prune out people that aren't positive, right? Because it's like, or feeding, if it's just crap and drama, and it's like, I don't have time for that. I just don't want to even put that in my life, right? So that's kind of back to your distractions. All right. So as we kind of go along our path here, I'm gonna challenge you to deliver to our audience the top 3 things that you think are important for newer business entrepreneurs to know. Top 3.
Okay, Matt, I would say, well, I've already covered some of them, but removing distraction and like really killing it with focus.
Distraction to
focus. Distraction focus, creating a killer routine that you can maintain most of the time. Like being very intentional, very disciplined about it, whether, it doesn't have to be all the things, but I think the top ones would be like exercise, like moving your body, because it just helps build so much clarity and all that kind of stuff. And some sort of powering down, like meditation, something like that, prayer, meditation, movement. Those would be my probably my top ones. So really great routine and really strong habits. And just surrounding yourself with the people you aspire to be like, because how often do you find that you will level up or you will level down? Right. Depending on the situation, the circle you're putting yourself in. So, awesome mentors, that kind of stuff. Surround yourself with those people doing not only the things you want to do, but living in the way that you want to live and serve people and show up and, all that kind of stuff. So those would be my top 3. If you're making me pick 3.
I'm just picking. Well, I didn't want to be like a book or anything. And then a question I've been leaning into with our guests that come on the show the last several episodes is really, so if you had one message to impart to all 8 billion, there's 8 billion of us, little ants on this planet rock that we live on. And so if there's one moonshot message, one message that everybody would get, like, right, that would be delivered to all 8 billion of us that are living on the earth, what would that message be?
I think it would be to really, really leverage your gifts and stay in your own lane. And I mean this very in a specific way in terms of not constantly comparing yourself and having that negative dialogue with yourself. It would just be leverage those gifts you have, be so proud of them, and put the blinders on in terms of like worrying about what people think. So I think that would be, I think it just creates negative energy and competition in the wrong way. Competition's great, but that would be my thing. Just keep your eye on what you're great at and how you can help people. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. What I can't remember, and I'll butcher this poem, but what the world needs now is people that are right waking up to their purpose, or it's not, the world doesn't need you to be something different. It needs you to be who you are, but more alive with that, right? I should look up this quote because I've tried to quote it a couple times. I haven't gotten it right. So what are you working on currently? You've got your Millionaire Mindset program that's a Facebook group, and that's and I know that's something that you and I, what I'm working on and what you're working on. That's kind of how we met, is through cultivating these Facebook groups. But this is the first time we've actually promoted somebody's Facebook group on the show. So I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. So you can just literally go to Facebook and type in Millionaire Mindset Program, and you're going to find this group.
Yeah, if you look under groups, you'll find Millionaire Mindset. It's kind of a pink and a blue cover. The goal in there is client acquisition for entrepreneurs, so that we actually have someone to serve, to sell to work with, to impart our knowledge on, right? So that's the goal right now. So I'm kind of taking people along a path of a bunch of different things that pertain to sales, but also like getting things right with yourself. So it is the millionaire mindset. You've got to have that part. And then we're going to cover some of the hard skills, but I just can't help myself but to focus on those high performance other things, our growth mindset stuff. So so far in there, I've kind of talked about, ways to feel great about what you're offering, and how to not feel like you're bothering people when you sell to them, and like kind of objection type stuff that, I'm not going to term objection stuff, but kind of that communication, right? Like how to really communicate with people and build relationships and feel good about yourself. I think that's big. So it's been a great endeavor so far. It's on fire in there, people wanting to serve one another, and it's a dream. Loving it. Yeah, loving the vibe in there.
And I just think it's cool that there's because honestly, I was kind of anti-Facebook for a while, and then I went, you know what? There's 2 billion people on Facebook. I'm on Facebook. Why am I anti something I'm a part of? It's like there was some type of shame. I remember back in the day when Facebook, well, I'm not on that very much. It's like, well, you're on it every day, right? But, and now it's like, you know what? It's a platform. It's a way to communicate, and the cool thing about this is you literally can communicate with the person that's giving you the information. I mean, it's an open dialogue, which I think breaks down these barriers, like versus, and I read a lot of books, but when you read a book, it's a pretty one-way thing at that point, right? I'm reading the book by myself, or maybe in a small group, but typically by myself, but I'm not able to ask the author, hey, what about this? Or what about that? Or what's this? Or what do you, kind of what are these nuances? But in these groups like this, now literally you're going to answer, like if somebody has a question, you're going to answer that question. And even schedule times to talk to them about. I mean, it's just so cool, this new world we live in, where these walls of information sharing are being broken down. And it's like, hey, if you want to, know about how to do this, then just ask the question. We want to, help, right? You want to help them find those answers.
Yeah, just remembering social media is social. And I think a lot of us forgot that for a while. And we thought it's actually somewhere to be sold to. I used to think that Facebook groups just went to die somewhere. People make them because they make them with the reason of selling a lot of times.
Oh, is that right?
Not that well, I think so. What I've seen, especially in I've been involved in the direct sales industry, coaching some people there. I think a lot of them actually are a sales tool, and people kind of see it coming.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think it's just maybe it's just my experience, but I certainly haven't seen that collaborative approach or that two-way communication, like you said, and that's where the magic is. You get to actually have, like you said, it's not like reading a book, although I
Right.
love books too. But yeah, it's just a different experience. It's an experience.
Right.
And I am loving it. And I would have said never.
Right.
Truly, if you had asked me
Right.
a year ago, would you be doing something like this? I would have thought, I don't see the point, but it's because I didn't understand kind of the inner workings of how to make it great, not just how to make a group,
Right.
to get more people,
Right.
whatever,
But actually a dissemination of information and ideas and a collaborative, right? It's a collaborative effort. Yeah.
And I hope people inside that group are going to work together. They're
Yep.
going to meet one another, going to find
Right.
like-minded people. Like nothing makes me happier than, a year down the road, a program that I had run, that people are still connected. Like I love
Right.
seeing that. So I'm hoping that some of that will happen inside the group as well.
Yeah, I love it. Well, we'll wish you the best on that. And as things
Thank you.
evolve, feel free to come back. And if you write a book, feel free to come back and we'll talk about it on the show.
Thanks, Matt.
And I'll be seeing you here not in too long. I think down in Phoenix, we're going to a conference together. So I'll be seeing you down there at that. Well,
Can't wait. Awesome.
Yep. Well, thank you so much for coming. And you have an Instagram. You can certainly go find you on Instagram as well. But yeah, thank you for coming on and sharing ideas and supporting people that are making the world a better place.
Thank you, Matt. Thanks for doing what you're doing.
Thank you for being a part of the BriteVibe podcast. For more information, go to britevibe.com. That's BRITE Vibe, VIBE.com. Thank you for listening.